Alright, Vamp, here we go. Game number 2. This is Soul Reaver, the second game in the Legacy of Kain series. This one's for PS1 as well. It's probably, just from my memory, like thinking about all these games without actually having played them recently, I would say that this one's probably the best one overall for the time that it came out. Like, there's really nothing in this game that feels like they could have done better, like, for the time that it came out. It's got a lot of influences from, like, I think, like, Tomb Raider kind of games, and maybe Zelda a little bit, but it's, like, very dark, gothic. I like this screen. I have to adjust these sound options because the way they mix the music in this game is terrible. So I'm going to start the game. I'm going to let the opening cinematic just kind of roll, and then I'm going to come back and talk about different things while in the cinematic.
Kain is deified. The clans tell tales of him. Few know the truth. He was mortal once, as were we all. However, his contempt for humanity drove him to create me and my brethren. I am Raziel, firstborn of his lieutenants. I stood with Kain and my brethren at the dawn of the Empire. I have served him a millennium. Over time, we became less human and more divine. Kain would enter the state of change and emerge with a new gift. Some years after the Master, our evolution would follow, until I had the honor of surpassing my lord. For my transgression, I earned a new kind of reward. Agony. There was only one possible outcome. My eternal damnation. I, Raziel, was to suffer the fate of traitors and weaklings, to burn forever in the bowels of the lake of the dead. Cast him in. Tumbling, burning with white-hot fire, I plunged into the depths of the abyss. Unspeakable pain, relentless agony. Time ceased to exist. Only this torture and a deepening hatred of the hypocrisy that damned me to this hell. An eternity passed, and my torment receded, bringing me back from the precipice of madness. The descent had destroyed me, and yet I lived.
Raziel, you are worthy.
Alright, so there's a lot to talk about just in this opening cinematic. So right here we're looking at the Pillars of Nosgoth. They've been destroyed because Kain refused to make his sacrifice to save the world. And you can see standing around the pillars are these 5 figures. And sitting at the base of the central pillar, the balance pillar, is Kain himself, still holding the Soul Reaver sword that he acquired in the original game. And centuries have passed since the events of that game. And Kain has kind of become like this mythic figure, like a god or like Hercules or something like that, where everybody tells stories about him, but only a few actually know just about what really happened. Like, most people don't even know that he used to be immortal. Now, we'll get more into that in a little bit, but right now I just want to talk about like what we're seeing here. Like, Kain right now is seated at the balance pillar. He's kind of turned this into his throne. Since the original game, he's risen some vampire sons who have in turn risen their own vampires, and they've kind of created an army and conquered most of Nosgoth. And this right here at the balance pillar is the seat of his empire. And this is the first vampire that Kain ever created. This is Raziel, his firstborn vampire son. Alright, let's just be clear about some things here. In Legacy of Kain, you don't make a vampire by biting a person on the neck, and then either they just become a vampire or you transfer blood with them and then they become a vampire. No, in Legacy of Kain, you have to make a vampire. I'm not sure if they really go over the process, but like, it's not just biting a person or transferring blood. You have to find a person or a corpse, and then you have to make a vampire. So this guy we're looking at, Raziel, is the first vampire that Kain ever made, and Kain only made 6. He made 6 vampire sons, who in turn made their own vampires, but Kain himself only made 6. And Raziel was the first in order. He was also the favorite, and he became Kain's like right-hand man, like the first lieutenant of his armies, and Raziel's basically the go-to vampire son when Kain needs anything or Kain trusts him the most, blah blah blah. So the other vampire sons are a little bit jealous of Raziel, because he's clearly, the favorite son. So Raziel makes a note here that he has served Kain for over a millennium, and we're going to take a look at Kain here. Now you can clearly see that he looks much different than he did in the original game. He's got like these claws on his hands instead of human hands. His skull is changed a little bit. His face is almost the same, as good as they could get it. But he's got like these crown shapes on his head. So what happens in Legacy of Kain is, after a certain amount of time, vampires will enter a state of change. I guess kind of think of like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly kind of thing. Vampires in Legacy of Kain, after a certain period of time, they will change. They'll like evolve. So that's why Kain has these claws for hands. Oh, actually, all of his sons have claws for hands. Kain had got this kind of crown kind of look on his head. His skin is different. Like, he's got like this kind of tough looking, kind of weird gold skin instead of the human white pale flesh that he had in the first game. So that's just another rule of Legacy of Kain vampires, is after a certain amount of time they will evolve. So typically, just because he's the original, Kain evolves first, and then his sons will evolve a little bit after him. But now we see Raziel is showing Kain an evolution that he just went through, and his is clearly a bit better than anything Kain has come out with over the years, right? Now, vampire evolution just seems to be random. Like, you kind of get what you get. So it's not like Raziel picked to grow himself some wings. But he came out of his recent state of change with these really awesome looking vampire wings. So now Raziel has kind of surpassed Kain in his evolution. Like, Raziel can fly now. And Kain can't have that. He kind of sees that as like an act of treason. So he rips off Raziel's wings and brands him a traitor. And this swirling like void thing, it's just a waterfall. It's just a very fancy looking waterfall. And water to vampires in the Legacy of Kain series is, it burns them. So this place is where they basically throw traitors and vampires who have broken the law or whatever. So Kain orders his firstborn vampire son thrown into the abyss. So Raziel's brothers, without hesitation, throw him right in, and Raziel falls into the water and just starts dissolving and burning, and like his face melts away, his organs are dissolved. He, like it feels like eternity, like he's just being tortured, until finally he doesn't feel the pain anymore, and he floats to the bottom of this great lake, and then all of a sudden he's conscious again and he revives. And I love the design of this character. Like you can see, like he's really messed up. He doesn't have a jaw anymore. He's basically like a haunted skeleton. So he covers his face with his clan's cape, like that's the symbol of his clan. And he hears a voice call out to him his name, and that's where the game begins.
I know you, Raziel. You are worthy.
What madness is this? What pitiful form is this that I have come to inhabit? Death would be a release next to this travesty.
You did not survive the abyss, Raziel. I have only spared you from total dissolution.
I would choose oblivion over this existence.
The choice is not yours.
I am destroyed.
You are reborn. The birth of one of Kain's abominations traps the essence of life. It is this soul that animates the corpse you lived in. And that, Raziel, is the demise of Nosgoth. There is no balance. The souls of the dead remain trapped. I cannot spin them in the wheel of fate. They cannot complete their destinies. Redeem yourself. Or if you prefer, avenge yourself. Settle your dispute with Kain. Destroy him and your brethren. Free their souls and let the wheel of fate churn again. Use your hatred to reave their souls. I can make it possible. Become my soul reaver, my angel of death.
Alright, so here's another cutscene we need to go over. So Raziel hears this voice calling out to him, and he looks at his new form and he's like disgusted. He's like, oh god, what the fuck happened to me? And he's basically like, oh, it would be better to die than to exist like this. And the voice tells him, you did die. Like, you are dead. So, don't even worry about that. The voice tells Raziel, I've saved you from basically just total annihilation. And Raziel basically says, like, I'd rather have the total annihilation than what I got right now. And the voice is basically like, well, you don't have a choice. So this voice is upset because when a vampire is created, they're immortal. And they basically, like, break the rules of life and death. Because their souls are forever trapped in their immortal bodies. And this voice is unhappy about that. So he's basically sending Raziel off to go and get revenge, right? To kill the vampires and free their souls from their immortal bodies. And Raziel, still pissed off from being executed, is motivated enough to go and do that. Which, if you remember, sounds very similar to the way that Kain first came into creation. You know, he was killed, he wanted revenge, and then he was given the chance for that revenge by Mortanius the Necromancer. So here we go. This is Soul Reaver. And I am going to have to get used to playing this game because it has been a while, and this game is very, 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 very old, and this is before analog sticks were a thing, and woof. Alright, first things first, let's get a look around this room. So that swirling vortex is like the end of that, of the abyss. And you can see around the room there seem to be these tentacles with what looks like maybe eyes or suction cups on them. And they kind of go all throughout the room. And the ceiling of the room is kind of like moving, like it's alive. And this is where we're hearing that disembodied voice. So, ooh, excuse me. So this is the Elder God. This god has apparently risen Raziel as like a wraith. So Raziel's kind of like a ghosty thing. Another word for Elder God is what? Old god, right? So this is like an old god, like a Warcraft old god, or like a Cthulhu, or one of those nameless, shapeless, horror, all-powerful beings kind of thing. Alright, so let's set off on our happy little adventure to go kill our brothers. And our father? Question mark?
These gates twist space, laying a path across great spans.
So this is basically just a big teleporter. I'm not even sure if this is here, like, in terms of the story. You know, it's just here as a gameplay thing. So you can activate this teleporter, and if you find more in the game, you can teleport to different positions around the world.
You are weak. You must feed.
The old hunger has left me. I have no desire for blood.
You are changed. Your bloodthirst is replaced by a deeper need. You have become a devourer of souls. To sustain your strength, you must hunt the lost spirits of the underworld and consume the souls of your enemies.
So Raziel doesn't have his bloodlust anymore, but it seems to be replaced by this soul lust. So he, instead of drinking blood, now consumes souls. And as you can see, like, he pulls off his the cape that covers his face, and he just automatically absorbs the souls that are around him. I just think it's this is a cool detail. Like, you can see, like, he doesn't have a jaw. And you see there's like a, you can see like the souls being pulled in. Like, that's such a cool thing. It almost like it seems like he can't actually stop doing that. Like, the only way he can stop it is to cover it. You know? Like, if he didn't have the cape, he would just automatically be eating the soul of whatever is around him. I think that's really cool.
Your wings, though ruined, are not without purpose. Take hold of them as you leap, and they will carry you across this chasm.
So yeah, so even though Raziel's wings are destroyed, he can basically use them to glide across, small gaps like that.
What scabrous wretches are these?
Sua, the scavengers of the underworld. Their feral hunger has claimed countless souls, spirits who now shall never find their rest.
So here, Raziel basically learns that he's not the only thing that eats souls. It's actually pretty common in the underworld. Like, there are many different creatures that hunt down, like, lost souls and consume them. But Raziel makes short work of these kind of scavenger creatures. And he, after he defeats them, after he weakens them, he can consume them. See, like that as well. So just important to note that consuming souls is not an ability unique to Raziel. There are other creatures that do it as well.
These portals are your conduit between the spectral and material realms. With their aid, you may gather matter and will yourself to become manifest in the physical world. This is taxing, however. Your strength must first be fully restored. You require no conduit to return to this plane. You may abandon your physical body at any time.
So the Elder God basically gives Raziel the ability to will himself into the real world, or the the mortal world.
You have much to learn, Raziel. When you are ready, this barrier will be dissolved.
This is also important because you can see that the Elder God doesn't want Raziel going certain places until the Elder God says it's cool. That's going to be like actually an important plot point for later. And here I just want to show you that so this is the Spectre realm. This is like the spirit world, and Raziel can will himself using the portal created by the Elder God into the material world.
Sustain your strength to prolong your manifestation in the physical world. If you fail to feed or absorb too many wounds, this fragile matter will dissolve.
So basically, if Raziel gets beaten up too much or killed, this body will die and he'll go back to being a specter, and then he'll have to build up his strength and find another portal to go back and create another body. So this part of the area is closed off. I also wanted to point out that as you shift from the spectral realm into the material realm, that things will change. Like you see here, this is where we emerged, but here it's closed off. There's no cave that leads back to the Elder God, although there are those weird markings. This is a surface that's going to come and be important later. Yeah, so we're here back in the real world, and Raziel is going to start his search for his vampire brothers.
You are young yet, Raziel. You still retain many of your vampiric weaknesses. Immersion in water, while not fatal, will dissolve your physical body, forcing your return to the spirit world. Be aware that in the spectral realm, water has neither heft nor lift. It stands as thin as air.
So basically, since Raziel is newborn, he still has some of his vampire weaknesses. So water will dissolve his physical body, but in the spectral realm, water doesn't even exist. It's like it has nothing to it, so it won't harm him.
What are these creatures?
Do you not recognize them? They are the children of your brother, Duma.
That's impossible. These foul, scuttling beasts could not be kin of our high blood.
Do you suppose that time stood still for you, Raziel? Much has changed since you passed from the world of men.
So Raziel comes upon these creatures he doesn't recognize, and he's like, what the hell are these? And the Elder God tells him, oh, these are vampires. Don't you recognize them? And Raziel's like, what? The fuck? So these are actually the vampire spawn of Raziel's brother Duma. And you can see they look like they're creatures. Like they have these like tongues or tubes that they suck blood with. And they have these claws and these really misshapen, ugly creature faces. So apparently some things have changed since Raziel was executed.
I knew my opponent's weaknesses, having suffered them myself. Physical wounds are fleeting. A vampire's immortal flesh begins to close as soon as it is cleaved. Vampires need only fear those wounds that impale or inflame. Water scorches like acid, and fledglings are devastated by sunlight's touch. I would have to modify my tactics to suit my foes.
So, having spent hundreds of years as a vampire, Raziel is very familiar with how to kill vampires. So because these are newborn vampires, sunlight will destroy them.
Unfettered from the flesh, a creature's soul fades swiftly into the spectral realm. Draw it in quickly, Raziel, or you will be compelled to follow.
So this is basically the combat in this game, is you beat your enemies until they're kind of stunned, and then you use the environment to finish them. See, now this guy's stunned, so let's see if we can finish him off in a kind of a different way. Here, we can use this. Whoop! Yeah. It's pretty cool. You know, it's very janky because it's an old video game, but especially for the time, I thought it was very unique kind of way to fight. Because the idea is you're fighting these like immortal beings that only have certain weaknesses, so you can't just like punch them until they die.
Your physical prowess surpasses what you knew in life. Even massive obstacles can be moved effortlessly.
So that's the Elder God just telling Raziel that he can move these huge blocks, so he can solve super intricate puzzles that are going to be super fun, I'm sure, later on. I actually really like the way, like, this came out around the time of, like, Ocarina of Time and Tomb Raider and stuff like that, where you had to move these fucking big blocks around in order to jump on them or whatever. And this game, I think, did it the best, because you can kind of stick your claws in them and move them basically any direction you want, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, just going back to the combat, I think the combat in this game is really unique. And if they should make other vampire games, they should take note of how, like, you have to look for something that either lights the vampire on fire or impales them in order to defeat them, or else they're basically invincible.
My God! The sanctuary of the clans reduced to ruin. Beyond these walls lay the pillars of Nosgoth, the seat of Kain's empire. How humble it now appeared, collapsing into the dust of its former magnificence. And yet, I had only just emerged. In the instant between my execution and resurrection, centuries had apparently passed.
This world is wrecked with cataclysms. The earth strains to shrug off the pestilence of Kain's parasitic empire. The fate of this world was preordained in an instant by a solitary man. Unwilling to martyr himself to restore Nosgoth's balance, Kain condemned the world to the decay you see. In that moment, the unraveling began. Now it is nearly played out. Nosgoth teeters on the brink of collapse. Its fragile balance cannot hold.
So here Raziel finds out that it's been centuries since he was executed, and the world is basically falling apart. Kain's empire is crumbling, and the vampires that he was so familiar with are all changed now. So, hold on, let me deal with this. Let me deal with this guy. So I beat him, and then here I have a torch. I can set him on fire. Yeah, see, isn't that cool? And look how the body dissolves after I eat the soul. That's so cool. And here on the wall here, you can see this like little spear. You can rip that off, and now you can use this as a weapon. Very cool. Like I kind of like the find a weapon. Caught him. You know, you have to kind of keep your eyes open in the environment to find ways to kill vampires. Yeah, I think that's awesome. So let's take a minute here and take a look around So this is the sanctuary of the clans. This is where Kain was sitting before. This is like the front door, and these are the flags or the the symbols of the vampire brothers. You can see those are Raziel's brothers. You can see that Raziel's flag is the red one with the kind of a question mark looking mark. See that? That's Raziel's. And now if you look at Raziel's cape that's wrapped around his face, you can see that mark. I'm going to see if I can show you. See? That's Raziel's sign. So all the vampires have their own like kind of symbol that symbolizes them. And the symbol for the leader of that vampire clan is two of those symbols, like back to back. So you can see that the world is kind of falling apart. Things are not looking so great. And the Elder God says this is because Kain refused the sacrifice. Like he didn't do what he needed to do, and now the world is doomed because of it. It has something to do with the circle, the wheel of fate. And this is Kain's symbol, by the way. It's like kind of looks like a bat with like a weird symbol over its head. And this is the front door to the clans, or the sanctuary of the clans. It's sealed shut, can't get through. We'll have to find a way to open that. Perhaps later on, but it doesn't work now. Can't open it, can't do anything. No way. No go. Alright, so let's take our weapon and let's continue searching for Raziel's brethren. So here you can sneak up on these guys. And then if they're unaware of you, you can kind of stick them. That only works if they don't know you're there. Yeah, I love the way that they dissolve there. It's like after you eat their soul, like their body is destroyed or like ceases to exist. It's kind of cool. I know there's another vampire around the corner there. Oh, he must have seen me. So yeah, combat's a little janky actually. And here, yeah, you can kind of hand-to-hand them, and then you can impale them like that, which I think is really awesome. In if you beat them in hand-to-hand combat, there's the dissolving thing. And yeah, I also like that Raziel uses like a magic to kind of pick the weapon back up. Like it just kind of, he pulls it into his hand. It's kind of cool. So this path just goes to one of those teleporter things. And like I said, I don't think these are actually like canon story, like these exist in the story. I think they're just kind of here for gameplay stuff. I'll just show you what the first one looks like, and then from now on we'll kind of pass on these. So Raziel emerges from that little tunnel, and he finds kind of a familiar sight.
This, at least, had remained constant. The endlessly swirling vortex of the abyss, my tomb, and the womb of my rebirth. Though much of Nosgoth's landscape had changed, these cliffs gave me my bearings. My clan territory was to the west. I was anxious to see how my descendants had fared during the centuries of my absence.
So Raziel revisits the abyss, and as you can see, it's basically just these waterfalls that create like a whirlpool in the center. It's actually really cool looking. Like this is old PS1 graphics, but it's really cool looking. I don't even know what you call it. Creation. Cool looking environment. So yeah, see if I can get a better look. But basically, yeah, it's just waterfalls that create a whirlpool. Like this isn't like a soul magic thing. It's just they throw vampires in there because they know that to vampires, water is basically acid. So Kain throws his traitors and other vampires in there to punish them, like basically to kill them in like the most painful way possible. And Raziel makes a note that his clan, like the vampires that he created, their territory is in the west, so he's gonna look and see how they're doing after all these centuries of him not being around. Right after I give this guy the big poke. Ah, delicious soul. So this is Raziel entering his clan's area, and as he does, you can see he's confronted by these two Duma vampires, which he deals with. So at least when he enters the area at first, Raziel doesn't see any vampires of his own kind. He just kind of runs into these spawn of his brother Duma. And now you can see this is like his clan's area. Those are two probably statues of Raziel. You can see his flags waving up there. You can see the statue is probably used to be a statue of Raziel, but has kind of decayed over time and fallen apart. This one's just the legs. And you can see like everything else, like this area is falling apart too.
Utter desolation. My once proud kin wiped from this world like excrement from a boot. I knew the hand that wrought this deed.
Yeah, so Raziel, after realizing he's not going to find any of the vampires that he created in this area, comes to the conclusion that Kain must have wiped them out as well. Like they were probably branded traitors, just like their master, and so they were all kind of just wiped out. And Raziel says they were wiped from the world like shit off of your shoe, you know. So Raziel basically decides to stop looking for his clan and start looking for his brothers at this point.
No! Please!
I didn't recognize these flayed racks of flesh. Their scent was vampiric. They gnawed upon their victim's carcass like dogs.
So Raziel once again encounters some weird creatures that he doesn't recognize. These are kind of like shambling corpses, kind of like zombies. What the fuck was that noise? Anyway, Raziel picks up the ultimate vampire killing weapon, a rock, and it cracks one of these creatures in the head and then throws it into the fire because he is the goat. So these are vampires. They're just not a breed of vampire that he recognizes, and he defeats them quite easily because they're a lot weaker than some of the other vampires he's run into so far. So this door marks Raziel's brother Melchiah's clan area. So Raziel's going to enter this area and look for his younger brother Melchiah. This is Melchiah's mark. Looks like an M, with kind of, or a bird if you're a 5-year-old drawing birds. Oh hey, so this is a vampire hunter. You see he's got like a crossbow or like a stake gun or something like that. And he's not interested in Raziel because Raziel's not one of the vampires that they're used to seeing. So he just kind of leaves him alone, and I'll show you something with that later on.
This charnel house bore the unmistakable marks of Melchiah's clan. To what depths had our dynasty plummeted if these ghouls were the descendants of my high-born brother? Were they so debased as to recruit fledglings from the desiccated corpses here interred?
So Raziel realizes his brother Melchiah is apparently making vampires from buried corpses that he finds in these graveyards surrounding the clan areas. And that's why these vampires are so weak. They're kind of like just poorly made.
My brother Melchiah was made last, and therefore received the poorest portion of Kain's gift. Although immortal, his soul could not sustain the flesh, which retained much of its previous human frailty. This weakness, it seemed, was passed on to his offspring. Their fragile skins barely contained the underlying decay.
So Melchiah was the last vampire brother to be created by Kain. And although he was immortal, his body was kind of weaker than the others, and his flesh was kind of discolored and like rotting. He was like Kain's least favorite son. He was the youngest, and he was kind of looked down upon by his other brothers. There we get a good look at him. So Raziel notes that his vampire offspring also kind of share his weaknesses. Like they're kind of like living corpses, reanimated. Kind of more zombie-ish than vampire. And if we go up here, these are two newly made Melchiah vampires. And you can see they're kind of like, you can see through their flesh, like they look more zombie-ish. You can see their spine kind of sticking out. And these are the weakest vampires that Raziel encounters in his quest for revenge. Alright, so in this room in Melchiah's domain, Raziel encounters a burned vampire corpse with red glowing eyes. And if you shift into the spectral realm, like abandon your body...
Beware, Raziel. These wraiths are vampire spirits, fettered too long in the spectral realm. When their vampire natures adapt to this plane, they become eaters of souls. Do not allow these spirits to re-inhabit their corpses.
So we learned that what happened to Raziel is kind of the way things work. If vampires are killed and their souls aren't devoured, they become these wraiths just like Raziel, and they search for souls to devour themselves just like Raziel. So eventually this guy's gonna lower down, get a whooping, and you see there that that glowing light was him trying to devour Raziel's soul, but Raziel's a bit too powerful, beats him and eats him up. So it's just a note that Raziel's not like a unique creature. Any vampire that dies, their spirit will become kind of a wraith that devours souls in the spectral realm. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, so here I'm fighting a vampire, and I'm going to defeat him, like so. And I just wanted to show you, if you defeat vampires and there's a human vampire hunter watching you, they'll kind of worship Raziel as something of a savior. I think there was supposed to be more to this in the game, but a lot of this game was kind of cut out of the final product. So that's as far as it goes. If you defeat vampires in front of the vampire hunters and you don't hurt them, they'll just kind of leave you alone and they'll kind of worship you, which lets you do something later on in the game, but it's not really that significant. But I still thought it was kind of a cool detail to kind of point out. Okay, I know this is really dark. I tried to brighten this game up. I searched and searched for a way to do this, but I couldn't figure it out. So Raziel enters this dark area down here, and the gates close behind him, and he finds...
Show yourself, creature.
Do you not recognize me, brother? Am
am I so changed?
Melchiah?
Yes, brother. You should have stayed where the Master sent you, Raziel. You will find Nosgoth less pleasant than you remember.
What has become of my clan? Answer me, little brother, or I will beat an answer from your horrid lips.
Everyone is afraid, sibling. You awake to a world of fear. These times of change are so unsettling. Do you think I feel no revulsion for this form? Do you believe for a moment that our Lord would risk his empire upon an upstart inheritance?
Enough riddles. What are you saying?
You are the last to die.
So Raziel has finally run into his brother Melchiah, who is much different than he was when Raziel last saw him. He's now this big mass of bodies and bones and like all these different people stuck together that Raziel can't seem to damage. You'll see here, I'll just chuck a spear at it and see if I can hurt it. Nope, just kind of laughs it off. Melchiah and his other brothers have been evolving over the centuries that Raziel hasn't been around. And Melchiah, because he was like the weakest brother and had trouble like containing himself, has grafted other corpses to his body to kind of keep from falling apart. He also has this ability, which is phasing. He can kind of pass through gates and stuff that's like barriers that have openings in them. So Raziel has to find a way to defeat this creature that seems unstoppable. So we're going to go in here and we're going to lift one of these gates. Oh, missed. I'm going to close it on my little brother, which seems to damage him. So like he can pass through these barriers, but if you kind of drop these impaling, I don't know what you'd call them, these pointy gates down on him, he's like not prepared for it, and he takes him by surprise and hurts him. So we're going to do that again. One thing to note about Melchiah is he kind of hates the form that he's in, but it's like the only way he can survive is just by binding all these other corpses to his body. Come on! Get in here, you stupid thing. Okay, here he comes. Drop this on him. There you can see he's hurt, he's bleeding. The switch activates, and if we take a look in the middle of the room here. Hold on. Whoop. Okay. Take a look in the middle of the room here. There's like this giant spiked gear or bladed gear. And in this cage, there's all this gore, right? So Melchiah may be like grinding up corpses or something like that in order to feed on them. Like maybe he can't simply drink blood like a regular vampire anymore. So we're gonna lure him in here. Oh, he's got to phase in the right way, or else we're gonna have trouble. There we go. His phasing ability might be because he's so weak that he might be sort of closer to the spectral realm than the other vampires are. Kind of like how Raziel is now. So he might be able to phase back and forth between them. I'm not sure if that's canon, but that's sort of what I get from it.
Tell me, Melchiah, where can I find Kain?
The Master is beyond your reach, Raziel. He makes himself known when he sees fit, not when commanded. I am released.
You have done well, Raziel.
Am I reduced to this? A ghoul? A fratricide?
Elevated, Raziel, not reduced. Consuming Melchiah's soul has endowed you with a new gift. Insubstantial barriers such as these are no impediment to you in the spectral realm. Will yourself to pass through, and you shall.
So there we go. Raziel devours his brother's soul and gains the ability to phase through these gates in the spectral realm. So Raziel has to abandon his body, and then he can kind of phase through these barriers in the spectral realm, and that grants us access to a bunch of areas that we wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. Alright, so that's one brother down. That's, I think, a good place to stop. Here's some concept art of Melchiah, so you get a better look at like what his body maybe looks like, which I think is awesome. I think he's an awesome design. I hope we get to see more, maybe in a remake at one point or another, huh? Alright, so that's part one, and I will see you next time. Later!